thoughts to, I'm talking about from a scholarship perspective,
Yeah,
with Terrence down this year?
obviously, like we're gonna have to, figure something out for that. Talking with Lanning and Will, and we have a really good plan going ahead, moving forward for that. But yeah, we'd like to get somebody else in there that can help us.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Because it's not exactly a base 12. It was last year or this year. I don't think you guys are really base 12 per se, where they were before when they used to carry 5 and 6 tight end.
Right.
So for base 11 operation, are you comfortable at 3, or is 4 always kind of the preference?
I think that because the tight end position is so versatile, like the more of those guys that can play and play effective football, it gives you a lot more options. So whether you are base 12 or base 11, or having those abilities, and guys get banged up and stuff like that. So the more people that you have in there that can go in there and play winning football for you, I think the better. I don't think that we're going to ever say like, hey, we're going to be a two tight end operation. That's not who we're going to ever be, in terms of just guys out there that are available to play. I think we're always going to try and have a lot more guys than that.
What are you hoping to see out of Pat this year after getting kind of a full, healthy season behind him?
I think Pat's got a lot of versatility for us, right? He's got great hands, right, and he's really, really effective in the C area for us, blocking. I think for him, getting through a full season healthy was a big deal. And then I think that he is going to be a very key piece of what we're trying to do here, not only from an inline place, but from playing out wide and doing everything else that we saw our tight ends do this past year. So we're really excited to have him back. He's playing better football, and he keeps developing and developing. So we're excited to see where he goes.
Still obviously really early, but what have you seen from Kenyan so far in their spring camp?
It's always funny with the freshmen, right? They're just kind of trying to keep their head above water here, and but he's a talented kid. He's brought here for a reason. He is a willing kid. You kind of never know with high school kids how tough some of those kids are going to be, but he's done a really, really good job in terms of playing physical with some experienced players around him, and stuff like that. So I think the ceiling is really high for him. He's got obviously a lot of work to do as a freshman coming in, but he's been great attitude and works really, really hard at it. And I think the two older guys have done a really good job helping to mentor him through these first few months, and developed chemistry and relationships in that room. So that's part been really, really cool.
When he has the opportunities that he'll have now, the second half of spring in particular, what does he have to show and level of performance and execution to show you to where you feel comfortable going into camp, where like he's not just here and he's third because you have 3 guys today, but comfortable where, like you have a couple of non-conference games in September where you could very well be playing him in those spots.
I think that with anybody, right, we got to see exactly what he can do. And I think when you're looking at specific players, right, like where does he function better than somebody else, right? So number one, like he's got to go out there and show that he can play consistent football for us, not just can we go out there and throw you a hitch route and see what happens, right? But got to be able to play in all 3 facets of the game for us, right? With his run blocking, pass catching, and pass protection. I think he's got to be able to do that. But I think right now, I think he's just drinking from a fire hose here, and there's so much information. I asked him, how much football have you learned in the first 2 months, 3 months you've been here? And he was like, Coach, I did not see that part coming, But he's been awesome. He very rarely makes the same mistake twice. He's super conscientious, very smart kid. So I think he's got a lot to show, but I think it's still a little early right now. I think these next 2 weeks for him are going to be really, really important.
You keep him at one position specifically, like do you keep him at Y as opposed to H, or do you want to do both, or?
So we don't have that luxury at tight end, right? Like, you got to play a little bit of everything, and you kind of get put everywhere, So we don't teach our players that way as just a general program philosophy. If we're going to get our best 11 on the field, right, sometimes that may be the tight end's got to go play X, or whatever that is. So you got to learn conceptually because we may change the formation, right? You're never going to just do one thing. You're going to have to be versatile, and I think he's got a lot of that capability to him.
In terms of reuniting with Will and getting the kind of band back together between you, Will, and Jordan in particular.
Yeah.
Take me back like 5 years ago. It's not like this is forever ago, but
yeah,
you're all young and you're that much younger at the time, and GAs and everything. Like, you guys actually thinking in terms of you'll all be in the positions you'll be only 5 years later?
I think when we got to the Texas, the 5 of us, so I've known Jordan since 2014. So Jordan's worked with me a couple different times now. Jordan actually lived with me for a few years. So to have him back is pretty much like part of our family. So to have him back has been awesome. And then Will, You know, you always knew that Will was going to be a great coach, you know, when he was with us at Texas, and then he crushed it at Lake Travis, and then it was no surprise to me that he ended up at where he's at and what he's done at UTSA. So having like close friends, it makes coming to work a lot more fun, you know, having those relationships, and he fits right in. He's doing a great job right now. So I couldn't have been more thrilled when I got that phone call that says like, hey, this is who we're going to go with. I was like, fuck, that's perfect. It's perfect.
Where would you say his offense gets the most influence? Because he's working with a lot of offensive guys, and there's different variations there. Again, I'm
Sure.
nobody's base 12 or anything, but
Yeah.
point is, like, who do you think is the most? Is it more Petrino? Is it more Herman? Is it more who?
It's a good question. I think that, you know, the mark I think of a good offensive coordinator is saying like, hey, how can I utilize my pieces the best, right? And so having different experiences, right, and being in different systems utilizes players differently, right, which gives you a more well-rounded approach. So I don't know that there's a good answer to that. I think that why he's been successful has been because he said, hey, like this is what I have, right? Let's use these guys in the best way that we can, right? At Louisville, we did this. At Texas, we did this. At UTSA, we did this. At Lake Travis, I did that. To get guys in position to be successful, so you're not trying to, you know, force a round peg in a square hole here, you know, and saying, hey, we're not going to have the personnel until next year or 2 years from now, right? You say, like, this is what we got, like, we can be successful with this. It may not be exactly what I did last year, but this is the best way we can get our pieces in the right places to do the right things. And so he's done a really good job with that, you know, and we're kind of, as we continue to mold every year, regardless of whether you stay, you know, in the same system or not, right? It's going to look a little bit different because those players are different. So it's an interesting question, a good question, but I think probably a little bit of everything, because if not, like you're kind of stuck into one way of doing things, and I don't know if that's going to be super successful unless you can just draft them, you know, like you do in the NFL. Then it makes it a lot easier. Yeah.
There, the terminology of the new offense, but again, a lot of the base concepts, I'm sure, are very, very, very similar. So how much of the language was held over, and how much was what Will brought to the table, or just for the learning process for players who are in their third OC in 3 years?
Yeah, I think that there's some carryover, you know, and some core stuff. I think that every year there's always some language change there, because you put in a concept, and at the time you didn't really have a good family to fit it in, and then all of a sudden it becomes like a really key piece, you know, and then so this comes this one-off, and then there's another one-off, and then there's another one-off. So every year you got to reevaluate that and try and streamline that to make the learning curve as flat as humanly possible here, you know, for those kids. And so I think you're going to get a little bit of that. So there's a little bit of both, right? And he's brought some new ideas in some places. So, you know, like we've all learned a little bit, right? And he's learned a little bit, and it's been a nice mutual, you know, what's the right, like conglomeration here of that. So I don't know if that's the right word, but we'll see.
Thanks, Drew. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.